Today I'd like to talk about panic attacks, and I do apologize, but I'm feeling extremely anxious right now, so I'm having to use the tools I have learned to control my anxiety, which I guess is probably appropriate for this video, but there's probably going to be a lot of cut points. I've spent the last couple of hours reading a whole bunch of messages, posts from people talking about when they had anxiety attacks, and of course I responded to them remembering about all of the times I was in extremely anxious positions, and that was apparently a problem. So you may have noticed that my hand is making nice, gentle movements. That is because that is one of several techniques I have learned to control my anxiety. I've heard a whole bunch of different suggestions about how to control your anxiety, and I have so much fear that I thought it would probably be a good idea if I just kind of combined all of them together. And believe it or not, it has actually worked wonders. It got to the point where I was able to calm myself down so much that I was able to lower my heart rate and breathing a little too far. Actually, I started getting some oxygen deprivation issues when I activated this protocol, I guess you call it, for too long, or especially when I wasn't feeling anxious. But, you know, it really works. So the first thing that I did was actually not the hand movement. The hand gesture was only to remind me of all of the things that I came up with to help me feel calm. The first thing I started with was music. I've found that certain types of music can be very calming, and they can remind me of other things that are calming. So I'm going to play a short clip of that for you while I'm talking about some of the other stuff. I needed more than just a song. So the next thing that I came up with was the hand movement. The hand movement is something that's very easy to remember, especially when my mind has completely emptied of anything useful and all it's really doing is pursuing nightmare scenarios and panicking me. So I came up with something nice and simple that seemed to really closely relate with my main calming thing, which was the music. Now, I remember being in music class a lot, and my music teacher would often do this sort of movement to count out the different beats in a measure. And I don't really know how to do it right, but it helped me to remember about music. And I just match it to the correct beat, and then I can remember the music. But I also wanted to change the hand movement so it'd be a little bit more tailored to what I was using it for. So I actually ended up adding in this sort of sweeping motion that I've been doing here. And it kind of reminds me of the ocean. And the ocean, or any other kind of body of water, has always been very calming for me. It helps remind me of the slow, gentle, repetitive crashing of the waves. If anybody remembers beach scenes, there really isn't a whole lot happening during most of those beach scenes. You just have the waves crashing over and over. You have the sand sitting there, doing nothing. A few gulls calling in the distance. It's very peaceful. And what I just did there was the breathing technique. I'll cover that in a bit. I also added in a fluttering motion like this with my fingers that it helps me to kind of burn off some of the energy that I seem to fill up with when I feel anxious. Because I don't know how many of you do, but I've always felt very jittery when I get anxious, like I want to go run away or attack something. You know, whatever I feel is going to defeat the thing that's scaring me the easiest. But this little fluttering motion kind of helps me to let go of some of that energy in a nice, calming, constructive manner. Because it also reminds me of a lot of that really high-pitched piano music, you know, where they'll do that sort of fluttering sound with the high keys. It's kind of cool. Also sometimes reminds me of raindrops when they do it slow. And of course, anything that reminds me of water is helpful. I also came up with several other visualizations. The crashing waves, as I mentioned. The just jumping into a body of water and just kind of being down there. Nothing's ever happened to me in the water. When I'm underwater, it's just a whole lot of nothing. Another visualization I liked to think of is a nice, calm, still forest scene. I know Jesse V talks about forest scenes a lot, but it's also my home place. I like to picture trees surrounding a clearing with some birds chirping. You don't necessarily have to see them. The dappled light streaming through. And maybe a babbling brook off in the distance, because I love water. And the visualization, it changes every time, but that's okay, because the important thing is to keep the general calming influences there. If keeping things consistent is helpful to you, do that. This whole thing, it's supposed to be tailored to what's going to work best for you. Another thing that I found was helpful was the breathing technique. So rather than just doing slow, steady, measured breathing, I decided on the breathing technique where you breathe in and you think of all the stuff that's scaring you and making you anxious and all that energy you've got. And you take all of it, you put it into the air that's in your lungs, and you breathe it all out. It actually goes away, at least to a degree. And if you just kind of do that every so often, it can actually help you to really manage the fear that's welling up inside you for whatever reason. The last thing that I use is tempo control. Right now, my hand is actually moving pretty fast, but that's because I'm concentrating on trying to think of what to say. If I was in a normal situation where I'm anxious and I'm starting to have a panic attack and I can't escape the situation, I can't think of anything constructive to do, what I would normally do is what just happened. My hand slows down, slows the tempo. The tempo is connected to my breathing, which then also slows down. My thinking slows down along with it, and then I can gather my thoughts and think constructively about what to do and how to resolve the situation before I start panicking again. Oh, I forgot to add in the other thing I also do. I do so many. I just decided to attack it on all fronts. And of course I forget. Oh yes, it's forgetting. I found a long time ago that I was very good at forgetting things. So I decided to use that to my advantage. So when I start getting really, really anxious and there's too much going on and I feel like I'm being pulled in all directions, I just take it back to one. So I center myself, push out everything else that's going on, and I focus simply on me, here, and the problem at hand. I'm afraid because. And I only have one because. The because is the primary thing that's scaring me. No other reasons. The other reasons, if you start thinking about those, you're going to get yourself stuck into a cycle of fear. You're just going to be thinking about all of the things that are scaring you, then all the consequences of allowing these things to go unchecked. And then it's just going to descend into this whole panic attack, which you're trying to avoid. The important thing is to stop thinking about what's scaring you. You focus on your breathing, you focus on the music, you focus on the task at hand, and you push out everything else. No consequences, no opinions, no thoughts, nothing that other people are going to do or say. That all has to go, because it doesn't matter at this point what they are going to think and do. Because the more you focus on that, the worse their reactions will be anyway. So you might as well just put it out of your mind. You're going to have a better result by focusing on the basic idea. And that is dealing with the fear and dealing with the situation. You get through it, you leave. So you may have noticed that when you start to panic, you can't really think of anything. It doesn't matter what kind of planning you might have done beforehand, anything you decided you wanted to do in any given situation, it all just disappears, it evaporates. Well, that's because you can't think when you're panicking. So the important thing with this is to make it a reaction, not a decision. When you rely on decisions, you're in trouble. When you rely on reactions, if you have good ones, you're not in trouble. You will actually be able to deal with the situation appropriately. A lot of the people, unfortunately, who have anxiety disorders don't have a pre-existing appropriate reaction yet. You have to build it. And the way I built mine was to practice. When I'm nice and calm, nothing bad is happening, I practice being calm and listening to the music that calms me and doing the hand movement and just feeling the calm. You do all of these things that you've gathered up and feel the calm. It may sound kind of stupid. You may feel kind of stupid doing it, but that's okay. You just put that out of your mind and get into feeling calm. I'm sure for a lot of you that'll be relatively new. So that'll be nice, a very nice change. And you get used to feeling calm when you experience these things, and you do it as much as you can. My suggestion, you do it in your room, in private, maybe even with the headphones on if you're going for something with noise. You definitely don't want to feel like you're being watched while you're doing this. That's usually just going to make you more anxious. If you don't have a room you can do it in, by yourself, maybe the bathroom. Maybe just going to a park, finding a nice isolated section of the park in the trees, in the shade where nobody can see you, that kind of thing. Just find a place where you can be alone for a while. Nobody can see you, nobody can hear you, and you just enjoy the calm. And you get used to that. And if you do it enough, my suggestion would be to try and do it at least once a day so that you can really get it ingrained in there relatively quickly, because some of you, I'm sure, are having anxiety attacks every day, every week, something like that. And that is just not a good way to live. Me, I only had a few panic attacks. I can count them on one hand. One of them lasts an hour, but still, it's not nearly as bad as what I'm sure most of you are experiencing. And a lot of you are going to need this very quickly. So you get used to feeling calm when certain things happen, so that when you are anxious or scared, you can just do this and you'll feel a lot less scared. Now, for me, this is what worked. But I also happen to be autistic, so that's a really nice excuse I can tell people when they start looking at me weird while I'm doing this. Helps to diffuse the situation, not make me feel more anxious. Most of you, I'm sure, are not going to want to have a movement or whatever that's going to be too noticeable. Maybe just bouncing your foot up and down. Or you can trace a figure 8 with one of your fingers. Just something that's going to be a nice, calming, fluid motion. Preferably something where you can control the pace of it. Something that's easy to remember. Maybe some of you will actually have an easy time remembering a song when you're panicking. If so, go with that. More power to you. Wish I was you, maybe. But I found, for me, the hand movements were the easiest to remember. And for me, this particular hand movement was okay, even though it draws attention. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are wondering how you come up with all of these calming things that you can put together to calm yourself down. Personally, I found that what seems like it would be the easiest way is to get out a sheet of paper, write down all of the things that make you feel happy or calm, and actually happy, calm, or safe. And then you just start writing them all down. Kitties, tracing movements, or the letter A. It can be anything, to be perfectly honest. And it doesn't matter if you think somebody else is going to think it's stupid. You don't have to tell people what it is that you're doing to calm yourself down. That's not even the point of this. The point is to calm down. It all happens in your head. It can be a feeling, a sensation, a memory, a person. It can be anything you want it to be, anything that it happens to be. And then you rank them. Have them ranked in order if you want to, or just do a 1, 2, and 3. 1 for the top 10 most calming things you can think of, then 2 for the next 20, and then 3 for everything else. And then in order to make it easy to remember how to do this, find 3 things, if you think you can do that, 3 things that are at least in some way related, one of which you can remember even while you can't remember anything else. Something that is going to be easy to bring to mind. Because when you first start doing this, it's going to be a little bit difficult to actually try to remember, hey, I have something to calm me down while I'm panicking. and then what is it? Because of muscle memory, movements seem to be some of the easiest things to remember. But everybody's different. So other people might have different things that they consider to be easy. And you just go with what feels right to you. You can change it later if it seems to not be working. Just make sure that whatever it is you do try, you give it at least a couple of months, because it does not always go quickly. I mean, anything in psychology is going to take a lot of time to actually work. People think that, you can just knock something out in like a week or two. No, does not work that way. That is a shortcut. Shortcuts don't get results. Shortcuts get you frustrated. Anyway, I had several things that I combined together, but I didn't actually do them all at once. I actually did mine one at a time. Well, two. First I started with the music and the hand movement, and then I added one more each time as I found something new that I thought would help. I suggest starting with 3 for quicker results. But if that seems a little too much to expect of yourself, then just start with 1. Start with a hand movement. Start with a musical number. Start with whatever works for you. And then just add one more in when you feel comfortable with the one you've already mastered. Once you have memorized that feeling calm and safe relates to whatever your first choice was or choices, then you're going to need to learn how to attach that to situations where you feel stressed out. I did it the hard way. I waited for stressed out situations to happen first and then tried to remember it. Didn't go so well. Took a long time. It goes a lot faster if you're able to put yourself into mildly anxiety-inducing situations. For example, looking at something that causes you fear, but not actually getting close to it. For example, if you have an unusual fear of dogs, then maybe you can just watch a dog video. Whatever is going to start getting your heart pumping a little bit. And then while your heart is pumping, then you start doing the calming thing. And you focus on shutting out whatever's scaring you while it's still there. And you focus on getting calm. If that's not working, shut off whatever is scaring you or leave whatever's scaring you, and then work on calming yourself down. Then go back to it and try again. You really got to just tailor this to what is going to work best for you. Some people's baby steps are a little bit smaller than others. And then you just do this over and over until you think that you're ready to move on to the next step and to face whatever scares you a little more directly. Get your blood pumping a little bit faster. And you just get used to being scared and doing whatever it is that you've decided to use to calm yourself down. And in this way, you can actually learn how to control your panic attack and maybe even stop it. Since I've started doing this, I've actually only had one panic attack that actually got to the panic section of the attack. Every other panic attack has started threatening to come out. I'd be getting anxious, my blood would start pumping, and I'd start wanting to run away, but then I do this, breathe, play the music, and I can start calming down again. I just put out everything else in my mind, and it actually starts leaving on its own when I refocus on getting rid of the anxiety. And just keep trying to remind yourself, this is a process. This is something where you don't get immediate results. You just notice a slow and possibly steady reduction of symptoms. And eventually, you can actually get rid of the problem altogether. And eventually, you may end up where I am, where the problem doesn't even stop you anymore. I can now, in spite of my serious social anxiety, make videos that I then post on YouTube to an indeterminate audience. I get anxious just walking up to a person I don't know. Hell, I get anxious walking up to a person I do know and trying to talk to them. I used to have a pattern of never starting conversations. I let somebody else start the conversation. If I wanted to talk to someone, I might move myself a little bit closer to them. But usually even that was too scary for me. What if they thought that I was trying to talk to them and they didn't want to talk to me? That was just too much for me at the time. And yet now, I can post videos not even knowing if people are going to start screaming at the top of their lungs at me because they're angry at me for some stupid reason. I mean, you really never know with these people. There's all kinds of really weird stuff that blows up on the internet, and it's like, why? I mean, I was watching a Jessie V video, and she said that she posted a picture of herself in a swimsuit, and people yelled at her about it. She's not even really comfortable letting people see her in a swimsuit. She just happened to think that she felt pretty decent in... She just happened to think she looked pretty decent in that one. And then people tore her new one over it. It's like, are you kidding me, people? She was taking a chance and trying to step outside her comfort zone to reinforce her own self-esteem a little bit. What's bad about that? People get offended at some of the weirdest stuff. But I'm still able to put myself out there now because of all the work I have done with pushing my boundaries and also with managing my anxiety. I plan to do another video later on about how it is that I managed to push my boundaries so that I could baby step my way from can't start a conversation with people I actually know to posting videos on YouTube and speaking in front of large crowds of people. I hope at least a few of you have found this video to be helpful. If anyone is having problems figuring out how to employ some of these techniques, please let me know. I am more than happy to help you out. I would also like to invite you to share your stories about your dealing with anxiety. I hope some of this has been helpful for you guys and informative, and I look forward to seeing your comments and hearing your stories. And thank you very much for listening. Have a great day. Bye.